approval, I guess, if you want to. So there's a little bit of that process heaviness is what remember what I was talking about earlier. So, I can ask for, hey, where do we sit today? More than happy to do that if that's something that'll help you guys kind of get started. But we just have to be, you know what I'm saying, this George, you're kind of in the weeds with the teams. You have that history. But I haven't seen the whole roadmap. I've seen kind of like a flow chart, if you will, that has some documentation within it, layered within it, or descriptions, but nothing that I would consider a futuristic roadmap that gets us from A to B. Oh no, I completely agree with you. Yeah, no, for sure. What I was gonna just say is I did give them a deadline. They're supposed to give me something by the 7th. So that is a deadline. I am more than happy to say, hey, I wanna see what you got and put Ramen on there. The Ramen will send it directly and CC Joe, and then we can kind of learn how we're going to integrate this, assessment, from HNTB or partnership with you guys, and how we can layer that in. We want it to be successful, right, between all of us here, right? So I just want to make sure that they know we're going to do an assessment. I shared that with them at our team meeting a couple days ago. I didn't say what it was and who it would be, but I just said, hey, I'm going to be doing an assessment. This is a great opportunity, right? New team, blah blah blah. So they're aware. But I'd be happy to get that for you. Or Joe, if you feel more inclined, like we can work it out offline, however you want to do it. But we can definitely get you guys something so you can kind of see where their headspace is. But when we talk about like documentation, document repository, don't have that, right? Like rules of engagement, don't have that. So when you talk about like the program stuff, I get real excited because I think, ooh, that's structure. Ooh, Angie likes structure because then we've got a place, right? We understand and we don't have roles and responsibility kind of things. So all that good stuff is needed.
I mean, at some point, we're all gonna have to roll our sleeves up, and we're all gonna have to get dirty in the sausage making. I mean, it's just like everybody's gonna have to get involved in that. We're not gonna be. We don't have time to polish things up before sharing them. We've all gotta be like dig in and get involved. So.
Well, you got my full support. I mean, whatever you need, you just. Yeah, so you guys have my full support of how we want to roll it out. I know, George, you had said something about traveling in a couple of weeks in, so I know we have some of that booked. So, to me, I'm an open book. I think Joe is too. It's like, how do you want us to get started? And then we'll swim with you.
That sounds good.
What do you have from the organizational standpoint as far as how the organization is designed around supporting development and how they envision the organization looking like to support the development of a new system? Because I think historically there was a lot of process, but not enough movement, right? But some of that process might be good, right? I don't know. Do you have an idea, Angie, on what that looks like for how you would envision support of the development that an org chart that would include HNTB and your internal staff and everybody? Do you have some of that in your mind about how that would look?
No. my mind is, and I mean, just frankly, no. George and Joe and I, we spitball. George was coming up with kind of some process stuff, but it's just so heavy, Dan. I mean, I think it's an open canvas, and unless Joe says otherwise, I mean, we want this to be successful. If you guys, he trusts you, I trust you guys, so it's one of those where it's an open canvas, and that's part of the assessment, because I don't know if the talent on our side of the house, meaning, on the AHF side, is right or wrong, so there's a lot of open-ended questions here. But I could give you an existing org chart that says this is what they do today, and how we're organized and what their roles and responsibilities are. That's something I could give you easily. If that helps.
Anything helps, yeah.
So I guess from my standpoint, part of this will likely be your team coming up to speed to position them in a way that they can be those SMEs on your back. They can gain that knowledge to be able to assess these things and make good decisions for the organization moving forward. So I view part of our role as helping them come up to speed as well. So not just giving them a recommendation, but really helping them understand the factors that go into the decision making and help
Yeah.
them learn.
Think of it this way. So I have operations and I have IT. And historically, IT has owned everything, right? Before I came into the authority. And so what does that mean? That means from the CSRs putting tickets in, those tickets getting prioritized, worked on, how they were, what the business rules were, what the development, what the end result was going to look like. All of that was decided in IT. Okay, so the business had no insight to that, and still to this day, they don't really have an insight to what tickets are being worked on or who prioritizes those. What you have on the IT side is a team of individuals that manage Ramana, and by managing Ramana, they also have the tickets that come in, and they decide what gets worked on from a maintenance perspective. But from a boss new perspective, like the new back office, what I think George could really give you a good education on what that process looks like. But essentially, Ramana has to provide a written 6-7 page document on what he wants to present to the business, because now we have the business involved, which is kind of overinflated, but that's another story. And so that has to happen. Then it goes to the business, and then the business, and some of the people don't have a development background. When you start talking about business rules, some of them don't even know what the business rules are. They just know they exist. So there's a lack of literacy there, business rule literacy, even data literacy, right? And this, I'm not asking for you to solve it. I want to make sure we bring you in so you have that background, okay? So I love what you're saying, Teresa. It's saying working with the team and letting them know that, hey, we're going to do this all together. Just know that we've got some individuals on the team. They're not going to be open to that. That's my job, Joe's job. But it's also, do we have the right structure in place today? We've got a product owner, 3, well, George, you could say who they are. We've got like 5 people. You're better than I am equipped to what their titles are and what they do. But they're in front of Ramana. And that has created, I believe, my observation, it slows us down. Because it's process for process sake. I think it took 3 weeks to develop a process that has 7 steps, which originally turned out to only be 3, was supposed to be 3, but then turned into 7. So you see what I'm saying? They're used to like, oh, let's create the process. And I'm like, let's do the work. Okay, I get the process, but just start simple, right? I don't know, George, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think that pretty much encapsulates it. I think Ramona pretty much, once it gets handed off to development, he does everything. They develop the user stories, he develops it, then there's a QA person on our side, but that's it. I mean, they're sort of functioning as product owners in the world of Scrum, in taking it, creating user stories, hand it off to Ramana, he builds it, we have a QA person that looks at it, piece that we're trying to sort of integrate back, because infrastructure has no idea. In fact, we're hearing that they need to, Graham team needs more storage and to do all the things they're trying to do, but they're just finding this out. You know, the infrastructure side's not been heavily involved in any of what's going on. So it was sort of split, where we had sort of a development team, an application delivery team, and then infrastructure, which basically is security, IT infrastructure, things like that. And so trying to pull all that stuff together, but there's not a whole lot of oversight. Once it's handed off to RAM team, they just build it, and then they come back in 2 weeks when their sprint is over and says, here it is. I don't know how they're doing acceptance criteria and all that. I think that's all built in when they're writing the user stories. But anyway, and that's the team they're not totally comfortable with what we're doing, because they want to be the ones that sort of does what I'm asking you guys to do. But I think they can write the user stories. I don't think they can get the bigger picture and get the bigger plan in place. And so, they'll be a part of this, but it's not going to be sort of managing the oversight of it. It's going to be taking care of the details once the plan's in place. They're going to be part of the process, if you will, but not necessarily overseeing the entire program, making sure the plan's in place. And again, there's been just a general resistance to want to do planning because we're agile, and so, which is not really what it should be, but that's what they're doing. So, but we can get you access to people and stuff and whatever you need. Because you're probably going to want to come and talk to people and understand what they're doing and how they're doing things. And,
I guess if you write the user stories, you think that's the IT group or the ops people in ops?
that's IT.
IT. Do you have ops people you would trust to write user stories, or are they not experienced enough maybe with tooling to know the best way to write or the best way to accomplish something? Would you more rely on the team that we're putting together here to know, and then go sell the ops on the idea? This is a good way to do it.
Probably more of that, to be honest with him.
Yeah. Okay.
We actually put Jennifer working with the ops team to help them get up to speed, because she brings so much of the experience of the system. But it's a lot. It's a big lift for them. Again, and they've been completely removed from it. They just get the system when here it is. Use it. So a lot of this is just foreign to them. User stories and all the stuff we're talking about, it's just not in their vocabulary. All right, so
I know everybody's time is valuable. I want to be respectful of that. So a couple of things that I hear coming out of this. So getting back to the contracting issue, Joe, you said that your legal team would like to see some example language, maybe contracts to deal with the IP. I mean, certainly we have a lot of that, and then some. I think we'll go offline and brainstorm a little bit on structuring compensation and see what we can pull together there. Right off the top of my head, TCA has an agreement where they come up with a budget, sort of for their team, and that budget is worked through together, and they issue a task order, based on that budget, and they can go plus or minus a little bit, but that's one thought. But we'll go offline and I'll talk to Dan and George a bit about some examples that we can send you there. We can start with that.
okay.
For those, and then for the planning discussion, Angie, we have a meeting with you later today. We've talked a lot already on this call about that, so we can focus the meeting later today, just discussing what artifacts you have available now, that we can go off and sort of chew on, and then figure out what we want to do in the near term next week to advance this planning effort.
That sounds great.
IP ownership stuff?
Yeah.
Some history?
Yeah, I've got some time.
All right. So back when this was developed, right, the development contract was with K2 Software,
Mm-hmm.
if you remember them. K2 Software and Fahim, Ramana worked for Fahim, and then Ramana would create a RAM info for the maintenance of the system post go live. We went and we bought Ashok's data, Ashok Sinha from NLDC, his database structure to develop on top of that was being used at the 91 express lanes at that or had been used there, but and it had him as a consultant on as well to finish completion. I frankly can't remember way back. I would imagine he had some rights to that, and that what you have today, no matter how much has been changed, would be considered a derivative product of that initial NLDC software buy. Now, I don't know what happened to the Telvin takeover. I have no idea, but I would think that would still be considered that. Now, I know from subsequent discussions with Ashok that he believes, and not in a way that he's trying to extract money. I don't even think he would care about the software, or even if he would care to use it. He didn't want to use it 10 years ago. I don't think he's looking to use the software on the new project. But I think if you asked him, he would say he got in working with Dave Christic years ago, he would tell you that they got a kind of a interpretation from council that this was a derivative product, and he still had some rights to it. I don't think he has any use for it. I mean, that would be the way to look, or talk to Ashok directly. If that's the case, I think you would, if E470, if Snoggle or whatever decided that, yeah, this probably is still a derivative product of that initial software that was used to develop upon, that he would probably go away for a relatively small amount of money at this point. I think he would consider that gravy. But that's just kind of my background, what I remember.
Yeah, and I recall there was an agreement in place that he did have, rights to any improvements that they made, and I don't know what's happened to that. I talked to Ramana, and he said, "Oh no, there's everything in here is completely new. It's we don't have any original code in there, but it's that derivative product." I asked Tamara if she recalls. She goes, "I thought that years ago, and maybe under 10, they sort of finalized that, and there was an agreement in place." But I got to hunt that down. She was going to check with the IP council that we worked with to figure out, like, where does that stand. So we have some homework to do. I mean, again, I don't think, to your point, I don't think Ashok's out there looking for a system right now. Like, hey, I think he's going to come knocking on our door in 3 years and be like, okay, I'll take my system with me now. But I want to make sure that whatever's out there, that we address it. And,
I mean, obviously you have full rights to maintain, modify, and everything else. And so it matters, what's it worth you to own it outright versus that language, right?
Right.
Does that mean anything to you? If it does, if it means 50K to you, get 50K, or whatever. If it doesn't mean more than that, say here's an offer. If not, we'll just continue to use it. And we don't even have to, you really don't even really have to go into it. You have the right to modify, use it. Whether he comes someday and says, cut me a copy of it, who cares, right? It's not like it's going to be, like you said, he's not going to go bid it on some project. I think the chances of that are extremely low, but you can talk to him as well about that at some point.
Yeah.
But you might ask Christic, if you could still reach out to Christic, ask him about, because Ashok will tell you he had a meeting with Christic and council, and in that, the findings, he would tell you it's more like the E470 council findings was that it was still a derivative product. And even if all that code's changed, I don't think they wouldn't change the entire database, everything else. I doubt it. And it's so easy to prove a derivative product. It doesn't matter. Even if you write code on top of existing code and replace it, well, it's a derivative. You took this existing functionality that was there and wrote on top of it, or whatever you want to.
Right.
I think it's very hard to prove that. Although logically, you can just say it's totally different.
Great. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I think more than anything, I want to make sure that Ramana Brand Info doesn't try to claim once they're done, like they're a development contractor on this thing to build that system, and that, you know, we, and along with Ashok, has some, you know, rights to the derivative product, but that he doesn't. And I don't know, maybe our contractor already has that in place, but I just want to be sure that he doesn't, you know, get a wild hair in 4 or 5 years and be like, hey, I'm going to take my system and go now, and go sell it somewhere else. And this would be Ramana, not necessarily. And again, probably wouldn't happen, but I would rather, I feel more comfortable having the contract in place that draws those lines and makes it really clear. So.
Yeah. One last thing you might is just kind of the homework. I don't know if Angie or someone can reach out to. I would make Ramana tell you who these 35 people are. Put a little matrix together. What are their names? What do they do? Are they 100% on your project? And what's their experience? Like, okay, he's been with me 4 years. She's been with me for whatever. Just some basics like that, so that you can get an idea of what, at some point, what the how you like. What do they work on? Like, is this guy? I'd like to know, like, how many UI people does he have versus how many database developers versus that. That's going to be helpful to us down the road as we put this together and see if his team is right sized to know what they are now and how he divides them up that way. I can send you. You want me to send you a bullet list of things to ask?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. All right. All right.
All right.
Thank you guys. Angie will be talking to you a little later today.
You got it. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you, Dan.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Nice to meet you, Angie. Take care, buddy.
Bye. Fucking ramen right now. So pissed. Fucking pissed.
One of those days.
Well, it's just a guy before, you know, I mean, just.
Angie, you still in your car?
I am at my location. Hello, happy Friday.
Hello.
So today we are gathered here to talk about dot 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 dot.
Do you have anything for us first?
Do I have anything for you guys first? Well, how's it going? I know I've got some feedback on bot. Kind of getting frustrated. Team's kind of getting frustrated. So, looking at ways to maybe slow bot down in terms of, you know, all these bot meetings. I don't know. So we just got to kind of talk through that. So Mark, I'm percolating a little bit on how do we, you know, work on our plan and plan our work and work our plan. I don't know. But, you know, that's kind of my mindset a little bit. I know Ramna is working on the roadmap with you guys, so that's good. So that would be a good thing, you know. So it's just, you know, maybe we're involving too many people or whatever it is. I'm thinking. So that's kind of the only update I give you guys is just thinking. And I know we talked a little bit in our staff meeting about assessment. So I'm working with Joe on what that looks like, Mark, of okay, so, you know, what's in scope for the assessment?